Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming today. My name is Eliana Sutton, and I'm the Regional Judicial Officer for the Environmental Protection Agency in Denver, Colorado. Again, thank you all for coming. I will be chairing the hearing today, and in addition to myself, there are other EPA staff here to assist in this hearing to ensure everyone who wants to speak has the opportunity to do so. I'd like to introduce these folks before we get started. Douglas Minter. Can't see Douglas, are you here? Oh, he did. Okay, we'll get to Douglas in a second. Velois Shea is to my right. Velois is in the Underground Injection Unit in the Office of Water Protection, EPA. Lynn Newton is standing back at the registration table. She's also in the Underground Injection Unit in Office of Water Protection. Lisa Vanderpool McLean is standing back in the other corner. Lisa is our Public Affairs Specialist in the Office of Communication. And Cease Ashanafi, I don't see, he's not here? Okay, so he is also, will be standing in the back of the room. He's our Community Involvement Specialist, and we'll introduce him later. On March 6, 2017, EPA issued 2 draft underground injection control, or UIC area permits to PowerTech USA, Inc. for injection activities related to uranium recovery near Edgemont, South Dakota. The draft permits include a UIC Class 3 area permit for injection wells for the in situ recovery of uranium and a UIC Class 5 area permit for deep injection wells for disposal of treated in situ recovery process waste fluids. The EPA is also proposing an aquifer exemption approval in connection with the draft UIC Class 3 area permit. We are here today to listen to your comments on these area permits and aquifer exemption. The public comment period is open until May 19th, 2017. In addition to this hearing, there will be one more hearing tomorrow in Edgemont, South Dakota at the St. James Catholic Church. We have held 4 other hearings, one in Valentine, Nebraska, and 2 days of hearings in Rapid City on Monday and Tuesday. In a moment, Ms. Shea will explain in more detail what was proposed in the notice. But before I turn it over to her, I would like to take a moment to explain a bit about how today's hearing will work. We will take testimony from 2 until 5 with the possibility of a short break, we'll see. And then a break from 5 to 6, returning to take testimony from 6 to 8. I will call speakers to the microphone. You have the choice of coming to this podium up here to speak, or if you feel more comfortable, you can use the podium down here below, and we'll hand you the microphone. You can come to the microphone after I have called your name from the registration card that you filled out. When it is your turn to speak, please state your name before you begin your testimony. In order to be fair to everyone, we will limit your testimony to 5 minutes each. We will signal to you when you have 1 minute left to speak with a yellow triangle. And then when your 5 minutes has passed, I will ask you to complete your testimony, and there will be a red stop sign. Please try to be as succinct and on point as you can. If I find we are straying from the topic at hand, I will interrupt and ask that you please return to the issue before us. If we have time at the end and everyone has had the chance to speak and you have more to say than the 5 minutes you were given, then I will allow people to get back up and finish their comments. After you finish your testimony, members of the panel may ask clarifying questions. I want to be clear that we are not here today to explain the basis for this proposal or to engage in back and forth discussion. The notice does that. The purpose of the hearing is to receive your input. We will consider and then respond to all comments received during this hearing, as well as all written comments in the final permits and aquifer exemption determination. We will not be answering any questions during this hearing. We are recording the hearing today, so be assured that your comments will be considered. The court reporter sitting to my left will be preparing a transcript of today's proceeding that will be available for anyone who wants to see it. She is independent contractor to EPA and therefore may not be looking at you while you're giving your testimony, but be assured she is intently taking down every word. The transcript is part of the record and will be included in the docket for this matter. The docket is where EPA collects materials it has considered in its action, including public comments. The docket is available on the internet for review, or you can view a hard copy at EPA's Denver office. The transcript of this hearing will also be available in the docket. If you have written copies of your testimony, please give a copy to our staff at the registration table, or you can hand it to us. This will be helpful as we prepare the transcript. If you have written comments or supporting documentation, you may leave those with us as well, and we will make sure they are entered into the docket for this proposed action. You also may submit written comments directly to the docket through May 19th. Instructions for submitting comments can be found at the registration table. Once the final permits are issued and the aquifer exemption determination has been made, anyone who participated in the hearings, either through oral testimony or written comment, has the right to appeal the agency's decision to the Environmental Appeals Board. Before I turn it over to Velois, I'll introduce Douglas Minter, who is the manager of our underground injection unit in the Office of Water Protection. And did Cease come into the room? Nope, okay. So at this point, I will turn it over to Ms. Shea, who will provide a little bit more information on the project before we get started.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate your attendance here and for providing comments. As Judge Sutton said, we have issued 2 types of underground injection control permits based on the type of injection and the purpose for injection. The Class 3 injection well permit is for injection related to uranium ore recovery in the Indian-Cara group aquifers. In association with this permit, there's a proposed aquifer exemption decision that's been documented in a record of decision. We're also taking comments on that, as well as the draft permit conditions for the Class 3 injection wells. The second permit is for the deep Class 5 injection wells, and they're Class 5 because they are injecting above the MADISON aquifer, but because it is a deep well and because the MADISON aquifer is just the next formation down, the permit has the most stringent well construction requirements and monitoring requirements that under the UIC regulations. So the well construction will be constructed like a Class 1 well and will have continuous monitoring like a Class 1 well. We also generated 3 additional types of documents. One is an environmental justice analysis that we welcome your review and comment on. We received some good comments from that yesterday and hope to, now that I've called your attention to that document, hope you will have time to look at it and provide us more comments. We did a cumulative effects analysis document for the construction and operation of the injection wells. And then our third document talks about our tribal consultation process that we began a couple of years ago. We have met with some tribes on government-to-government consultation, but not all of the ones that we hope to meet with, and that will be an ongoing process. We will not issue any final permit decisions until our tribal consultation process is completed. I don't have my slides today, so I won't be able to give you the information that I presented in the previous hearing, but we will have another question and answer session tomorrow in Edgemont. So if you could get down to the St. James Parish Church at 1 o'clock tomorrow, we'd be happy to continue with our question and answering session, and I can talk about the monitoring requirements that I can't cover now. So with that, I also want to let you know that your comment is important today and your time is important, so we really appreciate you taking the time to be here. Thank you.
Okay, we'll get started. When I call your name, if you can please come to either podium and we'll make sure we get to the microphone to you. Our first speaker is Dr. Peter Sutherland.
Would you like to come up here? Down, okay. So you could either hold it or probably that's the best thing to do. Thank you very much.
I'm Dr. Peter Michael Sutherland. My primary concern with this project is the willful contamination of the pristine MINILUSA aquifer, which is the water source for me and most of my neighbors. My secondary concern is the economic viability of fission, nuclear-powered electrical power generating's future, as has been exemplified by the 2 General Electric power plants under construction back east that have been terminated and the subsequent bankruptcy of the parent company, Toshiba, due to cost overruns. The unresolved nuclear waste problem and the legacy of 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, Fukushima, and now the Hanford Reservation failure. The price of renewable energy is dropping precipitously, making it the energy of the future. The shortfalls of transmission and storage will be overcome by innovation and brute force efforts. The price of yellow cake is well below the break-even point and demand is decreasing. Back to my primary concern, the injection of treated water into the MINILUSA aquifer. Mr. Hollenbeck stated the solution injected as a waste stream into the aquifer would be a saltwater solution. Let's talk about this. The Romans, after the conquest of Carthage in North Africa, spread salt, sodium chloride, into the fields of Carthage to kill the soil, thus starving the population into subjugation. But the term salt is a chemically generic term, like the generic terms dog, flower, or bug. There are many and varied examples within each category. The most commonly known salt is table salt, sodium chloride, which was illustrated previously. In chemistry, a salt is the result of the chemical reaction of an acid and a base. Thus, salts are a combination of all sorts of elements that have the opportunity to react under the right conditions. The process that is described by PowerTech is the injection of water, oxygen, and carbon dioxide. This is really the injection of an oxidizing agent and an acid, carbonic acid. Carbonic acid is made by adding carbon dioxide to water under pressure. Think Coca-Cola. Pour Coke on the sidewalk and it will fizz. With continued application, it will dissolve the concrete along with the other minerals present. What PowerTech is after is uranium oxide, yellow cake. After the uranium oxide is removed from the solution that is pumped from underground, the remaining mineral salts that are not moneymakers need to be disposed of. These are the salts that are to be disposed of in our drinking water. The chemical nature of these waste salts has not been defined, and considering the mineral complexity of the ore body, I suspect there are mineral salts that are deleterious to life. Mr. Hollenbeck stated that he would be willing to drink this waste salt water that's to be injected into our aquifer, which reminds me of a classmate of mine in school who worked at the sewage treatment plant in the summer. On a double dog dare, he drank a glass of effluent from the plant and was immediately taken to the hospital to have his stomach pumped and given every injection they could think of. He did not die, but he did not receive any awards for intelligence. I am not willing to take a double dog dare.
Thank you, Mr. Sutherland. Next, if I can have Cathy Sutherland. We're going to try and get the mic turned up, but if you can speak very closely and loudly into the mic so the court reporter can hear you, that would be great.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for taking the opportunity to give us the opportunity to share our concerns. We have many, and as my husband said, we have our well in the MINILUSA. I sent you lists of all the wells in this area and all of the different aquifers they are in. We're just uncomfortable with it. We have still got the remnants of the previous mines when uranium was booming back in the 50s through the 70s. They are not reclaimed yet, and they are still jeopardizing our water supply. The rivers, when we have floods, it's still not reclaimed. Pete's concern about uranium industry possibly becoming obsolete as renewables take on more and more positive ground. We don't need uranium. We don't need more uranium on the planet. It really should be left where it is. We have other resources that we should be exploring and putting into effect. My experience when we lived in Edgemont back in the 80s was that our state is a poor state. They do not oversee projects like this. I, at that time, watched the tailings pile blow into our little town of Edgemont when we lived there, called the state, called the EPA, and was told that, yeah, our state has rather lax policies and environmental standards, and it was kind of a drag, but that's how it was. I'm not willing to do that again. Our water is precious. You cannot undo the violation that will happen if there is a mistake, and it is a matter of time. As the EPA, you know, you have seen that there are accidents. You have seen that there are violations that are usually caught by the states and the people overseeing those. We will not have that oversight, and we have no one to watch our backs, and we have got everything to lose if we lose the water. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Sutherland. John Sides.
Yeah, my name is John Sides. I'm the chairman of the board of directors for the Fall River Conservation District. As a conservation organization, we are strongly opposed to the proposed uranium mining and injection wells at the site of Dewey Burdock near Edgemont. Conservation district boards are mandated to protect the land, air, and water quality. Because of this, the Fall River Conservation District Board of Directors wrote a resolution that went on to become the state of South Dakota's House Concurrent Resolution number 1025. This resolution reaffirms the value of the South Dakota groundwater resource and recognizes the need for ongoing evaluation of our groundwater management. This resolution in its entirety is attached to this statement. This uranium and injection well project could have devastating effects on the lives and economy of all the people in Fall River County. There are too many unanswered questions about this project, such as possible earthquakes, contamination in the MINILUSA and Iroquois aquifers. These two major aquifers supply water to at least 125 private wells, providing essential water to families and livestock. Chemical waste contamination would prove devastating to the many people who rely on the MINILUSA and Iroquois aquifers. In addition, the heavy truck traffic that is essential for a mining operation would be very damaging to the road systems of this county. This would cost the county and taxpayers extra dollars that it simply does not have for road repair and maintenance. The population of this county cannot afford mistakes that could come with this project. The lack of clean, usable water could easily turn our towns into ghost towns, productive rangeland into wastelands. We need to protect our water source for the well-being of all livestock, wildlife, and human life. Thank you. While I'm here, I'm also a private rancher, so I'll give my presentation on that. We own and operate a cattle ranch in eastern South Dakota. We are against the proposed mining and injection wells in the Dewey Burdock area. The water from our ranch comes from the MADISON aquifer by the way of pipeline. We cannot afford to take chances on polluting the water that sustains our livelihood.
Very much, Mr. Sutherland. Crista Spalain.
My name is Hagen. Crista Spalain and I are here on behalf of the City of Hot Springs. We're both city council members. I'm representative in Ward 1. Crista is Ward 4. On May 1st, 7 out of 8 council members signed a resolution for the city of Hot Springs to protect our water. And this is Crista Spalain. She's going to read that resolution to you.
Thank you, Kara.
I have to have the light so I can read. Sorry, I didn't bring my glasses. Resolution from the, as Kara said, this is for the City of Hot Springs Common Council. Resolution 2017-10. The resolution to reaffirm citywide commitment for clean water and water resource protection. Be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of Hot Springs, South Dakota, that we are committed to preserving and maintaining the amount and quality of the water for the citizens of Hot Springs and its surrounding environs. And thereas, the City of Hot Springs was first developed as a town in the late 1800s due to its proximity to Fall River and the abundant natural warm mineral springs within the valley. And whereas the City of Hot Springs has made a long-term investment in stormwater management, potable water systems, and wastewater management programs and infrastructure to reduce nutrients and pollutants in our water and to protect our vital water resources. And whereas the Common Council is obligated to preserve and protect the public health, safety, and welfare by preventing the pollution of and maintaining the quality of the water entering in, held within, and removed from aquifers serving the city water source. And whereas the City of Hot Springs has stated in a water ordinance that our mission is to provide the city water customers with safe drinking water supply water for the fire protection, and adequate supply of water for essential daily needs. And whereas the City of Hot Springs Common Council finds that any pollution or contamination, willful or not, of our water supply to be a direct threat to our community and its health, safety, and welfare. And therefore, be it resolved that the City of Hot Springs will take necessary action to ensure the perpetual purity of quality of the waters available for the use of its citizens of Hot Springs and the cities and those the city distributes water to, and therefore our commitment to support any action from the county, state, and federal governments aimed to protecting the water of South Dakota, both surface water and underground aquifers, as a critical natural resource necessary for life.
Thank you, Ms. Spalain. Paul Wheeler.
My name is Paul Wheeler. I've been a rock hound of sorts and a minor geology buff for many years. I've been traveling to the Black Hills for over 30 years and recently purchased a house here in Hot Springs. After reading the Class 3 and Class 5 permit fact sheets provided by the EPA in regards to the proposed Zarga project, it is evident to me that this project is, at the very least, impractical and at the very worst, extremely dangerous. Considering the complex subsurface geology of the area and its close proximity to known fault zones, the choice to use injection well technology to both contain contaminated wastewaters and mine subsurface uranium deposits is both irresponsible and potentially catastrophic. I would like to comment on just a few of the potential points. Page 23 of the Class 5 sheet states the locations and conditions of fault zones in relation to the project area. And I quote, "The Dewey structural zone consists of steeply dipping to vertical faults that are uplifted on the north side relative to the south side of the zone, a total of 500 feet. The Long Mountain structural zone is located approximately 7 miles south of the projected area. This fault zone consists of small northeast trending normal faults observed in outcrops of the Indian Kara Group and Sundance Formation within a zone measuring several miles across. The displacement across the faults measures up to 40 feet, with folding of the strata adjacent to the faults adding up to 60 feet of additional structural relief. The faults in the Dewey quadrangle occur northwest of the Dewey Fault in the Dewey Terrace area, approximately 1.5 miles northwest of the project area. A subsurface fault was identified by seismic methods about 5.5 miles north of the project area. It is about 1.5 miles long and 400 feet wide. 3 faults are shown in the northeast corner of the Burdock geologic quadrangle. The report states that these faults have a displacement of less than 10 feet and are located 2.5 miles or more from the eastern edge of the project zone. So, end of quote. In short, there are at least a half dozen faults of differing size located within 1.5 miles to 5.5 miles from the project zone. On page 25 of the Class 3 draft sheet, there's an even better picture drawn of the Dewey Fault. And I quote, "The Dewey Fault, a northeast to southwest trending fault zone, lies approximately 1,500 feet northwest of the Dewey-Burdock permit boundary." So again, we have a steeply dipping fault line lying less than 1/2 mile away from the project zone. Related to those facts, page 26 of the same sheet states, and I quote, "Many other faults are probably present, but not discernible because of poor exposures." Let me repeat that. Many other faults are probably present, but not discernible because of poor exposures. In response, it is stated, quote, "If there are any faults and fractures occurring within a wellfield area that cause a breach in the confining zone, they will be detected during the wellfield drill and pumping testing. If found, the placement of injection and production wells can be modified from the regular pattern to control flow around the fractures or faults to keep it flowing through the uranium ore bodies rather than along these paths of lower hydraulic resistance," end of quote. So, if additional fractures and faults are found in the projected area, and there are already many, PowerTech will simply and safely adjust the flow around these breach zones and continue to mine uranium. To think that you can safely continue to apply injection well technologies in an area of potentially breaching fractures and faults, I find to be both ridiculous and irresponsible. And if the information showing the close proximity of numerous fault zones to this injection well area is not enough to disallow this project, we must also consider the confining layers that will be used to contain the injected fluid. The entire project area relies upon a lower and upper containment layer of Fusan shale that underlies the whole region. But to quote from page 22 of the Class 3 sheet, there may be points where the Fusan confining zone has been compromised by improperly plugged exploration drill holes or wells that penetrate the Fusan confining zone. Evidence suggests at least one breach in the Fusan confining zone is included in the reports on the pump tests. It is clear from pages 15 and 17 of the Class 5 sheet that the porous nature of the MINILUSA sandstone as an upper containing layer is a concern.
Mr. Wheeler, your time is up, so I'll need you to wrap up, please.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll wrap up. So in its own outlines, the United States, two paragraphs, the United States Geological Survey lists specific factors necessary for injection wells to induce earthquakes. Those factors include the presence of faults that are large enough to produce earthquakes, stresses that are large enough to produce earthquakes, and the presence of pathways for the fluid pressure to travel. It is obvious that those same factors are in severe question in relation to this project. I think what I would like to say is that geology is an imperfect science. I'm sure the power tech geologists would agree. What cannot be seen below ground cannot be anticipated or contained. In my opinion, considering the toxic nature of these injection fluids and the obvious dangers of both questionable confining layers and their close proximity to known and unknown fault and fracture lines, the idea that this project can be done safely and with no ill effects to our water supply or to local geologic integrity is foolhardy and defenseless. The massive public and environmental loss that could very well occur far outweighs the singular and unnecessary private gain that is being sought. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. And next, if we can have Gardner Gray.
Maybe you can come back. Oh, thank you very much. Oh, thank you. I'll try to.
My name is Gardner Gray, and I've been here for 27 or so years. There are many reasons why the EPA should deny Azarga any permit to mine uranium and/or inject toxic fluids into currently used aquifers in the Dewey Burdock area of South Dakota, including the Indian Car, the MINILUSA, Deadwood, and the MADISON. There is no market for yellow cake. There's no profit to be made by mining uranium. Therefore, there's no reason for PowerTech to drill deep injection wells for toxic fluid that they will not be creating. It would appear that the only way for PowerTech Azarga to profit by their permits is to make deep injection wells available to outside sources of toxic waste. PowerTech denies the idea of outside sources of waste, saying they do not plan, that's in quote, they don't plan, to take in outside toxic waste, despite the fact that their permit allows it and profit demands it. And remember, PowerTech cannot do any mining at all unless the laws protecting the water and the land are put aside and waivers issued, allowing the contamination, which is by law not allowed. These new permits will allow PowerTech to pollute the Indian Cara and the MINILUSA aquifers directly, and the Deadwood and the MADISON aquifers by transmissivity. Once these aquifers are contaminated, there will be no remedy. They say they only need 1.5% bleed, which is somewhere around 300 gallons a minute. So I ask for 1,000 of gallons per minute. If they will not take in outside waste, why allow for it? They say the waste to be injected into the aquifers is just salt water. Well, the laws of chemistry refute that claim. The application to the NRC by PowerTech shows that the waste will be impregnated with radium, cadmium, chromium, and arsenic, among many other poisons. These chemicals will absolutely be part of the so-called lixiviant. New boreholes for toxic waste disposal are being requested because the original plan to mine uranium in situ is now irrelevant due to the low value of the material and the lack of demand worldwide. Also, alternative energy sources such as wind and solar are now employing more new workers than the oil and gas industries combined. Professional geologists and chemists from South Dakota School of Mines, Chadron State, and private practice have testified most effectively as to the danger of this plan for all the residents in the area due to the irreparable damage done to the water supply. The misuse or contamination of the aquifers in the Black Hills flies in the face of good judgment due to the increasing importance of usable water, not just in drought-affected South Dakota, but the nation as well. We are depleting our water supplies by allowing the very kind of destruction envisioned by Azarga and the EPA. With the demand for water ever increasing due to continued world population increases, it's imperative that the protection and careful usage of our water supplies be our guiding light. To actually embrace the opposite behavior is to violate the EPA stated purpose. Where am I? It is no longer possible to deny the threats to our remaining water supplies driven by in situ mining and water ruination. It is the EPA's responsibility to make sure that the water and the environment remain safe. And the Black Hills hydrology study of 1990 and subsequent, available from the USGS, is a fine and revealing scientific paper available for your review about this transmissivity and the dangers involved. It's about a 400-page report, and you don't have to get to even page 50 before it's obvious that this is a bad deal. The fact that Platinum Partners, which is Azarga's largest shareholder, is being charged with a variety of misdeeds, which, if convicted, could provide prison terms for the guilty, should be a wake-up call to the EPA as to the kind of ethics embraced by Azarga. With the company based in China, overseeing a Canadian company and offices in Colorado, one can easily guess how Azarga feels about the long-term health of the citizens in this area when compared to the drive for profit at all costs. How am I to explain to my granddaughter how her government decided that it was safe and reasonable to exchange her healthy drinking water for a few pieces of silver in the pockets of a few profiteers? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. Mary Hellen Peterson.
My name is Mary Hellen Peterson. I live here in Hot Springs. When I was in the 9th grade, which we called freshman at that time, I went to school in Edgemont, South Dakota. I was there for only one semester, but even at that age, I could tell that there was something wrong in the atmosphere. So I paid attention to the uranium from then on and learned everything I could about them. We need to protect our water, our economy, health, and way of life. Let's stop this bad idea right here. This is a very dry area of the country, even of western South Dakota. We can't lose 8,000 gallons of water per minute for the next 10 years. It would not only affect the Indian Cara aquifer, but the MINILUSA and the MADISON aquifers. These are all used in this area. We can't afford to lose that much water or have them polluted in any of these aquifers. These aquifers are known to communicate. If these permits are given to PowerTech or Zargo, then there is 10 more companies that will file for the same permits all around the Black Hills. Also, the companies that are approaching from the plains for deep hole disposable wells. Are we trying to make South Dakota the next uranium dumping area? This kind of stuff would also disturb cultural and historic sites, wildlife, and our ranching and tourism economy. Handling of uranium in any form produces radioactive and toxic waste that threaten people's health and our food chains. Hannon Lugering is a geologist, can't even talk, that had worked this area and knows that this whole area has many faults. That's what happened to Shadron Creek in 2007. It just disappeared one day into a fault in the earth, and that was their total water supply for the town of Shadron, Nebraska. He and some helpers went over 10,000 pages of the permit. He looked at the driller's notes and found artesian wells popping out of some of the holes, which shows faults in the aquifers. And all the holes dug over there have not been plugged like the NRC told them to. Some of the holes went into the caves, like Wind Cave. Lots of things he found in the driller's notes were things like, don't tell the landowners, and don't report the Indian relics. This was just all about the 760 well holes that aren't plugged from the TVA. Hannon Lugeri also mapped the aquifers. They are flowing from the west to the east. That join the most jobs that would be at the start up is 80 versus 350,000 people losing their good water. Is the government going to send in contaminated bottled water for us? Go to the Uranium Cowboy on YouTube to see a lot of information on this subject. Crawford, Nebraska is the only area that now has a high rate of pancreatic cancer in Nebraska and the United States. Dennis Yellow Thunder has filed a petition for review of the Crow Buttes permits. According to Lindsay McLean, is a known biochemist and NRC expert witness, there have been 1.5 million chemicals introduced into the body since World War II. Also, the Tennessee Valley Authority, after 10 years of looking for uranium to mine in the Dewey Burdock area, left because they found too much Jimson and cave lines in the area. It has already been proved that injecting materials into under high pressures deep underground causes earthquakes. This area is already having numerous earthquakes, as the whole Black Hills is an uplift stage. More and harder earthquakes are apt to break those deadly gases stored over there under igloo. It could kill every living thing in the area. These permits would allow the company to pollute our underground water, which we all rely on. Just across the western border in Wyoming, Chemical Resources have been hit with 9 apparent violations on how they are shipping uranium products.
Ms. Peterson, your time is up, so I need you to wrap up, please.
Okay. New information in yesterday, all of the wells north of Hot Springs are in the MINILUSA aquifer. According to Ben Bueller of the South Dakota Department of Environment and Natural Resources, or the DNR, said that there are hundreds of thousands of domestic wells using water from the MINILUSA aquifer. 196 appropriated water right permits in the MINILUSA, which include municipal, commercial, and industrial use.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Robert Laugherty.
My name is Robert Laugherty. I'm from Pine Ridge, South Dakota, and I just have a couple concerns on who actually owns PowerTech. Is it Azagar, or is it a Chinese investment fund down in China? And so they'll be making the money, and after about 10, 20 years, they'll be gone, and the contaminated water will still be here. And my other concerns is about the sulfate, radium, and iron that's going to be injected, supposedly supposed to be clean water being injected into these wells, and PowerTech getting free water and not paying for it. I don't agree with that. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Laugherty.
Weed eater.
Ed Harvey. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Ed Harvey. I'm a resident of Hot Springs. All of the aquifers in this proposal are presently being used for potable water by local residents. Thus, no exemption to the Safe Drinking Water Act of 1974 should be allowed. Both domestic and agricultural wells are in use. The NRC has prohibited the in situ mining operation in this area until the 7,600 plus abandoned boreholes are properly sealed. Geologically, this is part of the Black Hills uplift area, which is still rising, causing the rock to be highly fractured and constantly changing. Both of these... Okay. Better? Okay. Causing the rock to be highly fractured and constantly changing. Both of these conditions allow for flow between all area aquifers. This will make containment of mining waste and waste fluids impractical or improbable. Aquifer flow data is presented is inconsistent. In the mining application, the flow rate of feet per year is cited, yet in the very next paragraph, a pump test showed a drop in a test well 1,500 feet away in less than 5 minutes. Pressurized injection would certainly move faster than pump suction head values. USGS aquifer data shows tritium levels, which would infer high flow rates from the known recharge resources. This was assumed to be caused by an unknown recharge source. TVA driller notes, initially suppressed by PowerTech, show that at least one borehole went into an underground cave. This could be due to the Jewel and/or wind cave structures extending under this area. USGS aquifer data also concludes that flow rates through such structures is similar to surface flows in the area. This could easily explain the deviation between well data and tritium data without the need to identify an inferred new recharge zone. I am concerned that this project has a high probability for rendering my water unusable forever in the next few years. I do not understand how radioactive waste is acceptable for injection into an actively used aquifer which sits above another aquifer which is also actively used. Present ion exchange technology will not remove organophide heavy metals, including uranium. Disposal of this waste fluid should require permitting for a Class 1 well, not a Class 5 well, and continuous independent monitoring of the waste should be required. Since no mining operations are occurring, no need is shown for disposal wells at this time. This area is also seismically active with known faults in close proximity. Given the known occurrences of induced seismicity from injection well operations, containment of hazardous materials cannot be guaranteed. Will the agency granting these exceptions be responsible for mitigating any damages caused by this permit? Will a bond be required sufficient to provide water to all affected residents and to cover any damages like those seen in Oklahoma? Who will be responsible for the cost of testing present domestic wells to obtain a true water quality baseline? I understand the concept of putting a few rural residents at risk for the perceived benefit of a larger population base. However, you must accept that agricultural products grown on soil you allow to be contaminated with water you allow to be polluted will end up in your grocery market shelves. It's called karma.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Patricia Shyrie? Sorry if I'm not saying that right.
Good afternoon. My name is Patricia Shyrie. I am currently a resident of Hot Springs, South Dakota. I originally come from East River, Madison, in which I served 2011-2012 in the state legislature. At that time, I did fight against this project, and I continue to fight. I continue to study and to research and to learn more about uranium, about the ISL process, and what I have discovered is there's a purpose for uranium in the earth. And that purpose is it has a huge effect in the magnetic flow of the earth. It also has a huge effect in keeping the earth warm. If we keep removing the uranium from the earth, it's going to make the earth cold. It's going to affect the polar, it's going to how our earth axis sits, and it's going to affect our weather patterns. I want to now speak on a comment that Mr. Hollenbeck had made. Uranium mining has already been proven safe in other areas. I'm not exactly sure what other areas Mr. Hollenbeck has been referring to, but in my research, it has not at all been proven safe. In fact, uranium mining and processing is both water and energy intensive. Byproducts are considered hazardous and highly radioactive. Although uranium is natural if left in the ground, When mined, it no longer remains in its natural state, as the toxic radioactive material is mobilized. Once removed from the ground, humans and wildlife face a greater likelihood of exposure to uranium and its byproducts by inhaling contaminated dust in the air or by ingesting contaminated water and food. The product from uranium mining is a powder that, when stored in drums, emits radiation as the uranium breaks down. Waste products left behind remain hazardous and radioactive for 100,000 years. Substances and tailings include thorium-234, radium, radium, lead, bismuth, polonium. For every ton of radioactivity metal stored in tailings, there are additional tons of toxic chemicals. These toxic chemicals are dangerous to the human health and increase the risk of cancer and genetic defects. This has been proven by the National Academy of Science of the United States. They further state that it has not been proven that uranium mining is safe and that the unknown risks are just too great to compensate for unknown anticipated rewards. Banning uranium and mining and milling should be enforced. Now I want to speak about some studies done by a hydrogeologist, Dr. Rosanna Neopauer from the University of Colorado. She studied groundwater flow at an ISL mine in Christensen Ranch, Wyoming. And she found that contaminants will remain in the aquifer after all effects of restoration and will migrate through the aquifer into the future. She noted that a comprehensive modeling exercise was impossible because of insufficient data of the spatial distribution of various chemical parameters or on the chemistry of the injection solution used by the industry. Dr. Neupauer noted that diffusion of chemicals out of the immobile region can occur over many years or decades. Thus, even if the water in the mobile zone appears clean, it may become contaminated over time by this diffusive process. It would further increase concentration of lixiviant in the post-restoration aquifer. Dr. Neupauer reported that her report is consistent with that of experts at the USGS and other geological scientific communities. Groundwater has never been restored at ISL operations, and NRC acknowledges that, and that some 40% of measured constituents could not be restored to the baseline conditions. Now I'm going to speak on the term baseline. It is actually a misnomer in that it does not refer for the real pre-mining baseline condition of the groundwater over the entirety of the aquifer. Instead, a selected baseline from the immediate baseline production area of the ore-bearing portion of the aquifer is established. Thus, aquifers and groundwater are left unstable. ISL uranium mining is a poor choice to contaminate scarce Western groundwater and harm the environment. Truthfully, only a small number of short-term jobs will be provided with this project, with an inherent environmental risk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marlene Akhtar?
Someone want to hand her the microphone?
Oh, I could have gone down there.
That's okay.
Okay, just put it here. My name is Marlene Akhtar, and I'm also speaking for my husband, Dr. Hassan Akhtar. We put in a well about 15 years ago, and it was 640 feet down, but he said it was in the MINILUSA Foundation. And the state came and tested it within a few weeks, came to our door and said, "You have the best water in the county." And this is our water. There's no salt in it. I don't want salt in my water. Also, and thank you for coming, by the way, we have a little blue marble in space. This is a little blue marble in space. All the water in the universe is within this blue water. All the good air is within this beautiful little blue marble. If we contaminate it, it's gone. There's no more water coming. It is our responsibility to protect it, and it is your responsibility to protect it too. Our water must be protected at all cost. Those who are for the mining of uranium are for the money. Those against it are for our protection of water for now and future generations. I look out here, I don't see anybody fabulously wealthy. So we're not here because we're going to get money to protect this water. The ones that are going to receive the benefits probably do not even live in South Dakota. And we just can't let this happen. It's our responsibility. Having just come on board, I've only been working on this for a week. I don't know a lot of the information, so I thank a lot of you that have done all the environmental. I'm learning a lot. When this is done, for one thing, I'm testing our water. It's costing us $750 to prove that the MINILUSA water is pure. I will see that you get a copy. Also, I'm trying to get a hold of the state report that said we had the best water in the county. I will see that you get a report. Because I've just started, there's a lot of things I don't know, and I'm going to talk to a lot of people. I'm going to contact medical professionals, see if I can get doctors and nurses on board. They're the ones that are going to take care of us if we get sick. They need to know what they're dealing with if this should pass. When I have completed all my information, I will see that you get a copy. I will send a copy to President Trump, to Vice President Pence, to the Department of Environmental, to Rick Perry, to all of our senators, to the congressmen, to anyone I can think of. It will be sent by email and snail mail. And then let them all decide if they're going to turn their heads and let this happen to us. Because it's our responsibility, and they're responsible for taking care of us. And that's all I know, because like I said, I'm just getting started. So thank you for those that have all the information in your heart and you shared it. Thank you for coming and giving us a chance. And you'll be hearing from me. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.